Well, welcome back to Be a Refuge. It has been so fun to talk about stories with the Refuge community centered on learning and dreaming and practicing together. So I'm Kathy Escobar.
And I'm Joe Douglas, and we have our friend Stacy Shaffer here today. Super excited. Stacy is the kids and family pastor at the Refuge and has been part of the Refuge for a long time, longer than I have. And how many years now?
Since 2009.
Since 2009. All right. So when the Refuge was like a little toddler, you
Yeah.
jumped in to help tend. But we invited Stacy on because kids are such an important part of our community. They're vital to our community. They're not like, I think a lot of communities, kids are an afterthought or an aside. And Stacy has really helped to cultivate a culture in our community where kids are valued and honored and cherished. And that's something that we want, and not to be an afterthought because they have so much to offer. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you found the Refuge and a little bit about your story.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I was living in Arizona and had a really hard deconstruction church hurt story, and I was not really interested at that time. It was like an in-between. And someone had sent me a link to Kathy's blog back when blogging was a thing. So that's how long ago that was. And I was like, "Hey, I can connect to that." I was called Jenga Faith, and but your structure still remains, but pieces come out. And so anyway, like I commented, and Kathy responded. And so continued following, and it just progressed to come out and visit in October of 2008. And then I moved in July of 2009 and became the kids pastor in 2010. So been a part ever since. Can't get rid of me now.
Like reading a blog post, sending you an email. Next thing you know, you're packing your bags and coming to
Here we are.
Colorado. And, whatever was inside of you, you're a therapist and you were a therapist there, and then came here and started working here. And one of the things though was like this desire to be part of something that was healthier than what you had experienced. But how much courage that takes. That's a lot. That's like a bold move. And so what were you thinking inside? Like, what were some of the things as you were like heading here, driving in your car with your dog?
I don't own socks. That was a thought.
Fair.
Yep. Because the day I moved from Arizona, it was 117 degrees. And when I had flown out, one of the times I flew out was like March of 2009. And I didn't realize that March was the snowiest month. And so like I showed up at an interview for a place that I interned, and had open-toed shoes. And so was thinking I should probably get some new clothes. But I was thinking like, what am I doing? But one of my friends was like, if it's terrible, like you can always move back. And so spoiler alert, it's not been terrible. Still here. But I was hopeful but nervous because it was really it was a painful backstory with church. And I think I had the thought like, this is my last stop with church. Like if this doesn't work out, like we're done here. And so I'm glad that it's worked out. But I think that I was nervous hopeful. So
We talked a lot about the expectation versus reality of coming to the refuge in a few episodes.
Yeah.
Especially because of, Rachel's book, Searching for Sunday. And, and so I'm curious for you, like, how do you experience that with like, because kids ministry, kids programs, quote unquote, are such a huge thing, and it's so complicated and like so involved and so many expectations. And I'd love to hear how, like, when you came in, and maybe you didn't have a plan, but maybe you just kind of rolled, but how did you want to make that culture at the refuge?
No, those are good questions. I think I knew what I didn't want.
Mm.
And that continues to be true because the church that I had been a part of, I was involved in like the youth ministry, and I think that I can pinpoint part of the deconstruction of that faith like at a conference with the kids where it was in my opinion a really manipulative exercise to get them to convert their friends by calling, crying, begging them to listen, and had all of the kids on their phones to call right then. And I was like, this feels gross and disgusting, and I like had to leave the room. I'm like, that doesn't feel good. And so I knew I didn't want that. I also have like young life history, and I have a million positive memories of young life. And I am so thankful for my experience there, but um it's super different, the young life world with the refuge world. And a lot of that is because of they really want measurable outcomes with what they're asking you to do with relationship, and it feels very targeted. And I have, 3 wings, so I'm like, I can do this. Like, you want me to perform and produce, I can do that. And it didn't feel as genuine. And so like looking back, it's more clear, right? But at the time, like, it felt authentic to who I was, but that's not who I am anymore. And so it's really important to me that our kids ministry, our youth ministry is very, very authentic and raw, and that it doesn't matter how many like numbers are there, and it doesn't matter like what they would report on a survey. We don't give them those, so thanks for that. But it's not what they would like report, but they report in other ways. And so it's important to me that these kids don't leave with as they age out with a ton of trauma related to church. So
That would be nice. Yeah.
Gosh, it would be really nice. And that's what our hope is. And I think we've got enough supporting time in the trenches of long haul relationship to say that that's accurate. And I love that. Doesn't mean that's true for every single person, but it does mean that creating a space that you are so amazing at, that places relationship and connection and love in a container for how hard it is to be a kid in this world. And I think of the quote, and I'm going to misquote it, but you can correct it, of, be the person that you needed when you were a kid or something like that. What's the exact
younger
quote?
young
Yeah.
It's the same, it's just younger, so same
Yeah,
be who you needed when you were young.
yes. And most of us, that was totally my story. I just really didn't have people that were safe. I just didn't. And then honestly, I was not raised in a Christian family. And then I did go to something because someone invited me. They probably called me from the conference. And so then I went, and honestly, I didn't feel it there. I wasn't connecting. And so like, I couldn't get it there. And the first people that actually really cared for me was when I was working, when I was in high school, a Spiegel catalog. And I had this row of people that were grown-ups that truly believed in me, and they loved me and they supported me, and they actually launched me to college. And I always will remember like that they saw in me that I was a person that needed love, and needed encouragement to move. And that is what you do for the kids in our community. And there's a misconception sometimes about the refuge, that the refuge only has people that are like super struggling in every aspect of their life financially. And, we are an eclectic mix, and the kids are reflective of that. But the common thing that all the grownups have and all the kids have, same exact thing, human, is it's hard. And they need a safe space, and you create that safe space. And so I'm just wondering too, for you, like how you healed kind of being part of, we're always doing both. We're holding space, but then that space helps heal us. And I'm wondering for you, what being part of the refuge, kind of how that's impacted you, and then why it compels you to keep creating these spaces for the kids.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the past 13 years, I think I've done more developmental growth than I did, perhaps even birth to 13. Lots of like healing groups, and like as I continue to grow up, like I think it translates to the kids. I think in the beginning it was really I had this like need for like the old programming to be true, like look at the crafts they made, and look how much they're sinking in. And I think now I'm like, you get to do what you want, kids. That it's less about me and more that it's more process and safe place. I mean, I think that you know tied into like my job as a therapist, I just like see it's like the same needs that like the kids in my office are presenting as like our refuge kids. And so, and like both of those combined are like our basic human needs. So it's like if I like work on getting my own needs met, for like approval and support and connection, like then that's gonna like translate and help me to meet their needs better. And so I think it's just like a awareness of all of that. And like just the ability, like I no longer am concerned that if they like see me as like a flawed individual. I think before, like I believed that I had to arrive, and like hadn't like didn't arrive, so like there's conflict there. So I think my own healing, like um I think like translates to them, because the whole, like if we're doing a bunch of sayings, but the whole you can't take people further than like you've gone yourself, I think is super true for me in relation to the kids. I can't like promote like feeling like connected and safe if I don't feel connected and safe. Then it's just like it's pointless words. So
So good.
Yeah, that's great. Um, what do you wish that other communities like saw about kids, or heard from kids, or I guess maybe just, yeah, is there anything that like sticks out to you that you just wish, like, man, I wish other communities could see kids in this way?
yeah, I mean, I think like, well, and I hear too, like kind of from like our kids that will like go visit with another friend to another place, or like my own clients, and I hear like their experiences. And it sounds like not a lot has changed really with approach.
Like they still have to do contests and drink a gallon of milk as fast as they can. Like,
That
that's
is
my
now
experience.
that is now like banned because like some parents like did a lawsuit.
Oh,
So
good. Good. That
yeah,
wasn't healthy.
that wasn't good. No, I now have like an ethical concern with like at Young Life, there's always a food fight,
Oh.
and like now being part of the refuge, I'm like, that's not cool, guys. that's not cool. I don't care that you dyed the food blue. It's not cool. But like I think and obviously it's a blanket statement, right? Like because like I don't know all I'm not as super connected with everything out there, but it feels like what's reported back to me is often like exercises and missing the point. It's like they're these kids that are like are struggling, like feeling broken and feeling like things are pointless, and all of these kids like believe that everybody else is like watching them, and it's like they're the star of the show and everyone else has it together. And I wish that um I heard more that other communities were like addressing those things, because like at the refuge we talk about those kind of things, like we talk about like what would you do different if you were in charge, like how would you manage that. We talk a lot about like bullying, and I think like there's a lot of conversation, like a lot of dating series, and I feel like there's maybe a couple layers below that that is what they need, like. And I feel like it's appealing, right, to be like, oh my gosh, come, like we're doing like a series on like boys and girls in love, and they're like, and I'm like, right, but like what about like getting them healthy to be in love? And so, and it's like it's almost like it's like giving the wrong food when they really need like better nutrition. It's like giving junk food when it's just like maybe like a protein bar or something.
Yeah. Well, and I think some of that is like the pressure for those metrics that you were talking about, because I know when I had a really strong youth group community when I was a kid, but it was in the later years of high school. But the beginning years, it was like we had a different youth leader that had that pressure to like do the metrics and like do the big fun events and bring people in. And there's some parts of that are fine and good, but for me personally, it wasn't like formative. But then we got a new youth leader, and we're still friends today, and her vibe was more like, let's do a smaller groups and like have conversations and like actually like get to know each other. And it was more intentional. And that core group, the youth group got really small very quickly. But that core group, like almost all of us are still doing some sort of like service work, or there's some, even though some people have moved away from Christianity, some people are still Christians, but like those core values were in us. Like one of my friends is like works with Engineers Without Borders, and like other one is a doctor in a low income neighborhood, and like so it's just it's telling, but you definitely like there's cost to that approach as far as if you're wanting a giant youth group that has lots of like tons of things and big numbers. So
I remember saying to this family that like they had visited when we were at the Grange, like so centuries ago, and I was like joking with them, like, yeah, like because like someone had told me that one of the bigger churches in the area got some big like acrobatic trapeze playground-ish area for the kids. And I was like, yeah, we don't have that. And she's like, yeah, that's not why we're here. And like I always think of that it's like that's like, because I used to feel like, oh, we don't have the bells and whistles, and I'm like, yeah, we purposely don't have the bells and whistles, like to get down to some of those like more intimate things. And I feel like that's like my heartbeat is that these that some of the groups like that these kids like connect with each other, so they have that that it's like I'm not going anywhere, but like I feel like the real heartbeat for them like long term is each other. And so it's so fun for me when I like see them like organize stuff like together that they wouldn't have before, because they go to different schools and different things, and so that makes me really happy.
Mm. I love it. And, I'm thinking of a long story, and you came in really early in the Refuge story. 2009, we were just 3 years old. And so just, barely kind of making it and doing our thing. And we've evolved so much since then. I mean, so much has changed, but that heartbeat hasn't. And we've been talking about that on Be a Refuge. But one of the things that was always really important for us from really day one is that the kids would be integrated into everything, that there wasn't a separate thing. And so it doesn't mean that the kids don't need their own space to feel safe, and they don't want to sit with their parents every time. And, but we still do, we eat together, our special events, the kids all share for beauty night and participate in really every Refuge tradition. The kids, we're getting ready to do the Jenny Herrick Memorial Art Lab, and all the kids are there arting, leading the way and speaking when there's room to share. We go around the circle and everybody, and sometimes, Thanksgiving, there's a lot of people there, and the kids all speak up and say what they're thankful for, and just being integrated into the community, not a distraction. And not, we've got the parents and they're the priority. And, Joe already mentioned this, but I love that part. The kids have led us. And here is the beautiful part of long haul community, that anyone can enter in at any time. So it's not a closed group. New people come. You've got brand new kids, that are now joining some of these groups. Is that I think it'd be really helpful for people listening, especially because we said this with Be a Refuge. Some people in the Refuge who are like part of the community regularly really don't know some things that are happening. Just seeing a little line item on the calendar doesn't really help know, what it is. And so, we have actively a T3 group that started when they were 13, I think, right? Or something like that. And now they're all young adults. And we have teen girls group. We have the Sunday nights, which are now twice a month for Spiritual Formation Sunday. A TLC, Teens Love Coffee or Tweens Love Coffee. So tell us, like, just briefly, just like a little sense, just not the long story, but enough to have people go, these are the ways that we do this together intentionally, on top of just having them be part of other things, the both and of Refuge life.
Yeah. So like every group that I've created like has been like based on like a need, like the kids that are like coming, or like the friends of the kids that are coming, like what would be like useful for them. And that's how like T3 started, like one of our like regular kids is like wanting a place to like hang out with her friends that felt safe. And so and that's how T3 started.
What
So
is those listening in, what does T3 stand for?
oh right. It started, Joe, as Teens, Tacos, and Tough Topics. Now it is 20s, Tacos, and Tough Topics, although they are no longer teens. We no longer do tacos, but we still talk about tough topics. But yeah, they're like in the like age 25 range.
Okay.
So there's that. So that group, like we meet like once a month, and really it's just I feel like all of the groups, like girls group, my TLC group. It is kind of fun thinking of names, not gonna lie. That's fun for me. And like I have a couple of other ideas like swimming around in my head. I feel like it's almost like it doesn't always matter like what we're like doing, as long as it's like creating a safe place. And that's like kind of the bottom line. Like I like my TLC group, I have a bunch of different like kind of expressive arts ideas that I'm gonna bring a couple different times. And so basically we meet at Starbucks and talk about their lives. And sometimes like that can be tricky with the hat that I wear, because a lot of their parents like are my friends as well. And so it's not a therapy group. It's not like a smart group, like it's like a connection group. And so I feel like all these groups are places for like kids to freely talk and with like one another, because I will often say something to the tune of, I wonder if anybody else can connect with this. And so it's like, yeah. And I think like the bottom line for all of them is I want these groups for kids to feel less alone, because it is so lonely. And I feel like the whole social media component has made kids more lonely, because they're convinced that everybody else is having a grand old time, and that they're left at home alone, when that's just not accurate. Like the Be Real app, like I feel like is really, I mean, it's like fun and cute, but I feel like I hear kids report to me all the time, like, I saw all of my like friends together, all these people together, and I'm left. And so I want our groups, like every time I have a group, for it to be like, where your friends are. They're all right here in this very moment, and they're all connecting with you intentionally. So that's my hope for like teen girls group and TLC. I was thinking about starting like a book club group, but the reality, if we're being honest, is that like we would pick a book, but we'd probably talk about it for 15 minutes, and then they'd want to talk about their lives, which is fine. But that's how these groups, like, that's how they connect, and that like they're not going to be shamed. Like, I love our culture about like no crosstalk, and like no, like, so no advice giving or like talking over. They know it's like the one place where they can freely talk, and like they're safe and they're accepted, and no one's gonna like argue their opinion away. And so we can call the groups different things, but like that's the meat of it.
That's awesome. I didn't know that you brought those guidelines in there as well. That's so good. I wish that I had that as a teenager. Or junior high, or even. I was like, man, if our gatherings had no crosstalk and no advice giving, I mean, that would have been so different.
Well, I was telling someone, an adult, about the refuge, and I was like explaining that principle that we practice, and I'm like, it's really painful for me when I'm a part of other groups that don't do that, because it's so much more obvious. I'm just like, they didn't ask for your advice. I want to like crosstalk the crosstalk, and be like, I'll raise you one. And so like the art that our kids are learning, like, thank you for sharing, and so that the hope is that translates. So
love it. If you had any advice for if they're in a system where it doesn't have connection, and how could they help their kiddos just find more connection and be more connected?
I mean, I think that like, connection happens with like lots of different organized things, right? But it's really like the culture of the organization that can make or break anything, like I'm sure there are safe places in people's soccer clubs, that like that feels like wholesome and connected, but it's really hard. It's really hard to find that. And that's why I think sometimes people see on the calendar like teen girl group, and they're like, please, like, I don't know what to do, because even in our big, we don't live in a small town, in our big area with the internet, it is hard to find a thing. So I think that safe place can start at home.
So much goodness. I'm going to say one last thing before we transition. One of my favorite things is on the long story for Water Heals, which is our nonprofit, Jose and I's Water Sports Empowerment for the Soul, which has been, it's intersected with the Refuge for years before it was really its own nonprofit, is just taking people out. And Refuge Lake Day is like a big Refuge tradition. But watching those kids. We do boats every year, and watching them learn how to get out there and make themselves so vulnerable and learn how to surf and water ski and wakeboard and support each other. It gives me chills when I say it right now. And to watch the evolution. I mean, some of them were just too little. They couldn't do it. So they were on the get up board, hanging on. And then they could get up on their knees, and then they could stand up, and then they tried the surfboard. And then, now it's like the minute Stacy puts out the date, it's full because everyone wants to be out there to learn. And so for Jose and I, it's like one of our greatest gifts is to watch the kids grow up and live and practice vulnerability together. It's like the best.
I love it. Yeah, one of our kids, children may nameless, is a senior this year, and we had dinner the other night, and they told me, if I choose CSU local school, I could come to Water Heels in May. It would not be that far than if I went out of state. I'm like, don't mean to be that guy, but that doesn't seem like a terrible idea to me.
Oh, so cute. Love it.
So factor that in.
All right. Are you ready for these rapid fire questions?
Yes, ready for it.
Okay, here we go. Number one, gotta pull up my phone here. What is one word that best describes the refuge for you, Stacy?
Genuine.
Finish the sentence. I keep connecting with the refuge community because
they're my people.
The most irritating part of the refuge is one of the most irritating parts. Might be too hard to think of the most, but one of the most irritating parts of the refuge is
finances.
Can you unpack that a second? I know it's a short answer, but
yeah. I love, Kathy's lineup. We do a lot with a little, and so always make do. But kids are expensive. And like, oh my gosh. And I love group events, love like outside events, because I feel like I can be more present with them than at the refuge when there's just like so much swirling around with adults, like it's just the kids. And I like planning things, but it costs money. And so believe it or not. And like I was a little jealous because I saw this like one bigger organization like rent out a place that I'd love to rent out, and I'm like, but that's like, I don't know, our yearly budget, like with everyone. So I'm not gonna propose that. And so I'm proud of how I handle our budget. Like I do it well. And I don't have complaints because it is what it is. But like, more money would be nice.
Sure. You do a lot.
Yeah.
You do a lot with a little.
And it's irritating.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I second that. Being part of the refuge has helped me
become a solid and secure human.
Love it. So much goodness.
All right. So our closing round, leaving today with a little bit more, a little bit less.
More connection, less anxiety that I'm going to say something dumb.
I'm leaving today with more energy and joy, which is usually what happens when I hang out with Stacy.
And I'm leaving more with a little more total gratitude. And I think I just say eyes to celebrate, like eyes to celebrate just what it means to be a community that can be all together and have so much nurturing of health for the future. Total gift.
Awesome. Thanks, friends.